In this video, we will be discussing about count, prefix, and suffix pairs 1. You are given a zero-index string array words. Let's define a Boolean function is prefix and suffix that takes two strings, string 1 and string 2. This returns true if string 1 is both a prefix and a suffix of string 2 and false otherwise. Return an integer denoting the number of index pairs I, j such that I is less than j and is prefix and suffix for these words is true. So what they are saying is that in the input, we are given an array of strings, which is words, right? Now, in this, what we need to check is that wherever a particular string is present as a prefix as well as a suffix of a string, of any string towards its right, then we need to count it, right? So basically, if you see for this particular A, we need to check that towards its right, if there is any string where this particular string is present as both a prefix and a suffix, right? Prefix meaning that that string should start with this particular string, right? And suffix meaning that that string should end with this particular string, right? So wherever this is true, we need to count it, right? So we need to check this for all of the strings, and then whatever is that count, that we need to return as our answer, right? So if you see over here, if we check for this A, we will check in all other strings towards its right. So this is also starting with A and ending with A, right? It is having prefix as A, suffix as A. So this is one count. Then if we check here, so this is also starting with A and ending with A, right? So this is another count. Then if we check here, so prefix is also A and suffix is also A. So the count becomes 3. Then we will check for this string towards the right. So this is ABA. Now this is starting with ABA and this is also ending with ABA, right? So this is one count. Then if we check here, so now since this string itself is having greater length as compared to this string, so this string will never have this particular string as a suffix or a prefix, right? Then if we check for this one, so we'll have to check here again, this length is greater, this will never be present as a prefix or suffix in this particular string, right? So finally our answer is 4 in this particular case, which we have to return, right? Now, if we look at the brute force over here, so that is very simple. And given the constraints in the problem, the maximum length of this array is 50. And the maximum length of the words that we have inside is only 10, right? So we can apply brute force over here and achieve our answer, and that will be accepted as well. So what should be the brute force? So as I said, for each of the string, we need to compare with all other string towards its right? So what we will do is we will run a for loop of I starting from 0 till n first, right? Then we will run a for loop of j, right? So basically with this I, we are fixing that particular word and then we will check it with all other words towards the right. So j will start from the next word, right? So j will start from I plus 1 and it will go till n, right? Now inside this one is the string 1, which will be words of I, and other one is the string 2, which is words of j, right? Now we need to check whether string 1 is present as a prefix and suffix in string 2, right? So firstly, as I said, if this word is having greater length as compared to this word, so there we can without checking say that it is not starting or ending with that particular string, right? As I saw over here, if this is my string 1 and this is my string 2, this is greater, so this will never be present as a prefix or suffix in this particular string, right? So here you can have a check that if the str1 dot size is greater than str2 dot size, so you can simply continue, right? Otherwise we need to check. Now for checking whether string 2 is having string 1 as prefix and suffix, what we can do is that we can use the find function over here. So whenever we apply find function, so if you see, if I check that, if str2 dot find str1, right? So now if string 1 is present as a prefix in string 2, then this find function will return us 0. Basically, if I see this is my string 1, right? So in string 2, if it is present over here, so it will return me this index, right? So for this string 1, from whichever index it is starting, that index it will give me, right? So if the first index of this string 1 is 0 in string 2, then I can say that yes, it is a prefix. str1 is a prefix in str2, right? If you see over here, if this is my string 2, right? So here, when you will find ABA in this string, so it will find this particular string and the starting index of this string is 0. So it will return me a 0. So I can put a check here that if this is 0, then yes, it is a prefix. Now I want to put a condition for suffix, right? So I will put an and str2 dot find string 1, right? So now what should this be equals to? So if it is a suffix, then it should be present at the end, right? At the end, it will return me this particular index. And what this index ideally should be, that whichever is the string in which I am finding, that is string 2, if from its length I deduct the length of string 1, basically this length. So from this, its length is 5, right? If I deduct this length, so it will give me 2. And if you see 0, 1, 2, this will be the index, right? So here we can put a condition that if this is equals to str2 dot size minus str1 dot size, so this will give us that yes, it is present both as a prefix and a suffix. Then we can count it. We can take some variable count and we can count it, right? And at the end, we can return this count, right? If we see for the time complexity, this loop is running n times, right? This loop is also running n times. So this is n square. Then inside this, we are applying find operation, right? So whatever is the length of the string 2, that time this find function will take. So if let us suppose that the length is m, so in that particular case, the overall time complexity of this approach will be n square into m, right? And we are not taking any extra space. So space complexity over here will be constant, right? So let's quickly look at the code. So first of all, let's take the size of the words array in n. Then let's define a count variable for returning our answer. Then we'll run a for loop of I starting from 0 going till n and I plus plus. Inside this, another for loop of j starting from I plus 1 going till j less than n and j plus plus, right? Now inside this, our string 1 will be words of I and our string 2 will be words of j, right? Now we will check that if the length of string 1 is greater than that of string 2, then we can continue. Otherwise, we will check that if string 2 dot find string 1 is equals to 0 and string 2 dot, now one thing to notice over here which I forgot to tell you while explanation, that since we need to find it from the end, right? First, we find out from the beginning. So if this particular string is present both in the beginning and at the ending, so the find function will always return the first occurrence of this particular string, right? So when you are checking for prefix, that time it is okay. But when you want to check for suffix, then you will have to check from the ending, not from the starting. If you will find from the ending, then you will get the first occurrence of string 1 from the end, right? And this is what we need for checking the suffix. So for that, we have a function rfind. So basically it is reverse find. It will find the first occurrence of the string 1 from the end of string 2, right? So this is what we will use here. Now if this is equals to string 2 dot size minus string 1 dot size, then we will count it, right? And then at the end we can return this count. So let's try to run this. Now, in this particular case, we had smaller constraints. That is why we are able to apply this brute force. But if the constraints are more strict, then we will have to optimize our solution. And for that, we have a second part of this question, which is a hard level problem. So that we will discuss in another video. For now, let's try to submit this. So it got accepted. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video and subscribe our channel.